What is up, my geeks? It is time again for two geeks, one mic coming at you with some geeky shit. Joining me today is my good friend Amber. Amber, how the freak are you?
I'm doing wonderful, and I am really excited to talk about the ladies of the Willow
The
world.
ladies of the Willow
The Willow world. Quite the tongue twister.
We got so as you guys know, we're collaborating here. We're watching Shogun. I've got all the even episodes. My friend over here has all the odd episodes. So before you watch this, if you haven't seen episode 6 of Shogun, you need to go back and watch episode 6 of Shogun. If you haven't watched episode 5, our discussion about episode 5, you need to go down to the link description below, see a link for the previous episode. Woo! See a link for the previous episode. Watch that episode on Road to Tarvalon, which is Amber's YouTube channel. And then make sure you leave a like and a subscribe and a comment on what we got right and what we got wrong. Please tell us how we're wrong. We love to laugh at the comments.
Yeah.
Talk about them. And then come back over here and get caught up with not only episode 6 of Shogun, but episode 6 discussion.
Yes. This episode was a doozy.
Oh my God.
Typically so many flashbacks and the theater montage, and there was so much happening, and that's a very hard episode to put all of this stuff in but make it seamless, which I feel like they did a good job.
I would agree.
So much drama, so much theater.
I would agree, and you kind of get a sense that, well, there's one really big reveal in this show that I'm a really big fan of. But let's start in the beginning. They do like a 21 years ago in the land of the Japans.
Yes.
As our good friend Blackthorn says, or should we be calling him Hatamoto, or is that a title?
I mean,
is that a title,
right?
Or a name?
I feel like Johnny is just, that's not enough. John. Like
Johnny boy, Johnny B.
Johnny B.
Oh, Johnny B. So
I'm calling him Johnny B from now on.
So we put Johnny B on the back. He's just saved Toranaga's life, right?
Johnny B on the back burner. Oh my goodness.
Johnny B in the back. What's up? Apparently, this is the tongue twister episode. Oh, Johnny B from the back bought some butter to make some batter with a big booty. I don't know.
Okay. So Johnny boy.
We put him aside for the moment and we focus on Mariko. We go back into the past 21, 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a little girl and she's just come to the castle, and they were like, oh, here's this other little girl, you guys be friends, and they become good friends. And we later learn that this little girl becomes consort to Lord Taiko by the name of Lady Ochiba.
Plot twist.
The lady who's stirring up drama right now.
I'm so glad to see more of her. Like, that was the character where I was like, okay, I'm really I'm on the edge of a cliff, and they brought all of this stuff in. But the way that they did it, what a stark contrast, because you have these two little girls going through some terrible times together, and that scene where they're huddled back to back, and then we cut to the future, and it's Ochiba, what happened? Who hurt you? Who hurt you?
Well, I got the impression that she was kind of I don't think they viewed it as torture, but I get the impression that she was tortured. People were so desperate for Lord Taiko to give birth to a son, that they took her and they were like, we're going to give you mushrooms. We're going to give you all kinds of drugs. We're going to do this. We're going to stretch you in these ways. We're going to do all these really horrible things to you because
Yeah.
that's magic and ancient superstitious ways say, hey, you're going to give a son if you do all these things. And
Can I ask?
they were like not hedging their bets at all. They were like, we're going to do
Right.
every single thing.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Is it okay? Is it just me, or is the implication that the Tycho son might not be his? Because like they said like how many women it was, like
Hundreds.
he's born with
Yeah.
hundreds of women and she was the one, but like if it's that many women, it can't be the women, like
Sure. Well,
logic points to it being him having the problem.
do you want to know the stupidest thing in the world that I
Yes.
because
Absolutely.
I had that thought, but
Okay.
you went down a different road than I went down. The
Okay.
road I went down, I was doing like the Henry VIII thing, right? Where he kept having girls, and I guess they've gone back and they suspect that his
Okay.
diet was such because they found that because once again the chromosomal identity of your child is determined by the sperm, right? So the dude's addition to that equation. That was a nice sanitized way of saying it, huh?
It was.
And they theorized that he was on like this really specific diet, which was basically just a lot of indulgence, and as a result, like was not producing male sperm, right? It was, and so he was just like female sperm all the way, right? Like let's go, ladies. And
Sure.
my thought was Tycho was like King George, right? He was just like whatever, or Henry. He's like, cool, whatever. We can just eat whatever we want, and it never once crossed my mind that he had never given birth, and that none of his consorts had ever given birth. My assumption was that it was like, oh yeah, so he's got daughters running around everywhere.
No. That's a great point, though. That's a great point because I didn't think about it that way, but that could totally be the case. But I mean,
that's the thing, though. They don't say.
Right. They leave it completely like you're in the dark.
The only thing we get is that there was a desperation for her to bear a son.
Yeah, and what a terrible coming of age that would be for Ochiba. I mean, just awful. But I mean, like, it's a great, I don't want to say like villain origin story, but it kind of is, like she's obviously not presented in a way that it's like she's not like a happy fun time gal, like she's like, hey, I will force fate to look me in the eyes and I will claw its eyeballs out. And I'm like,
that's the scene that made me feel like her childhood was not the best, because she was like, you have no idea what they did to me. You have no idea what I endured. And there's probably a lot of that too, where she may have been threatened. Like, if you don't give a son, like, we will just kill you. Like,
right.
The psychological and emotional terror of, on top of everything else. Yeah, it's no wonder this woman is cracked.
I love how this show has presented, like in the beginning, going into the show, like you're getting a lot of these female characters, and a lot of it is centering on kind of like, look at how powerful they are in their station, like Mariko as a translator, like she has like, she even has like all of these weapon skills, right? So when she's presented, it's like, oh, she had kind of like a mysterious past, but like here she is, strong gal. But as it goes further, it's like, okay, just because at first glance it seems like, okay, like they were brought up in this environment where they had a lot of agency and power, now it's looping back around and being like, no, that's the case. Like both of these women, Mariko and Ochiba, have had like nightmarish scenarios in their background where they are clawing for and like grasping for agency and trying to find that power by any means necessary. And it hasn't been an easy climb, and it hasn't been, a luxurious life really for either of them. So it's really kind of like, how we talked about in the last episode, where at first you're presented this story and it's like, the beautiful Japans, in the word of Johnny B. But then you go further into it and it's like, okay, yes, the beautiful Japans, but also like don't romanticize it too much because we're going to show you the darkness of it. So they've presented that twice now with like women power and then like plot twist, horrible background, grasping for something. And I think that's a really interesting method of storytelling that they've been, handling in the way that they've done that.
They've done a really great job with it, and I like that you point out the parallel between Ochiba and Mariko, because the title of this episode is Women of the Willow World, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of the willow is that I will bend in the wind and I will survive.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's a whole concept, a whole Asian mindset with this. The strong oak, it might be mighty, but will crack under the wind. And the willow may not be strong, but the willow will survive under the harsh conditions because it will bend. It is supple.
Isn't there a Tamil Thor chapter where he's like, that
there
one.
Is, yes, and
what a beauty.
Which is why I laugh when you get angry nerd boys who cry about don't add all the Asian themes to my Western fantasy, guys. Nobody in Europe wore a top knot. Nobody in Europe wore a top knot. Everybody in Shinar wears top knots because it's an Asian-inspired society. Stop.
Get over it.
Oh, sorry. I get
Willows.
The
Willows.
Willows. Bend. That's right. Bend and survive. I will be as the willow.
We're the willows.
But I like that Mariko is also going through her tempest at the same time, and though it is different, it is still very much life altering. It is very much painful. We know from episode 5, from this last episode, right, that her family is dishonored for the assassination of one of the other regents. Betrayed and assassinated one of the other regents. We find out later it was actually Toranaga who plotted and planned, even though her dad was the one who carried it out. And she was really, really, really upset about her marriage to Buntaro, right? There was like this whole thing where she was like, this is a bad marriage. I'm marrying down. Yeah. This is nonsense. What did I do to make my dad hate me so much? Like, she has this very visceral sort of, I don't know what I did. Why does my dad hate me? Like, this is
right. And then to lose her father and never get that, acknowledgement. They never were able to have that conversation. So she's just been sitting on it for how long?
Which I think this is a good time to bring in Buntaro, because he's pertinent to this conversation. And it gets back to basically him paying a little bit of the piper here for his outburst. And Toranaga is basically like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with you? And Buntaro's like, look, I just came back from war. She's so mean to me. The whole time we've been married, she's been so mean to me. And then the Anjin comes in and she's so warm and happy with him. Did it feel like a string of excuses to you?
Yeah, but also like, I feel like their relationship is so tense. Like, the breeze blowing in the wrong direction is going to set him off.
Absolutely.
And this is like over the top.
For me, what it felt like Toranaga was like, hey, what's going on here? And you've got Buntaro, who is obviously a very accomplished warrior. Dude
Mhm.
knows how to fight. Dude knows how to take care of himself. And he sits down. It's just like when Johnny B confronts him after leaving his house. And the guy, he goes, yeah, sorry, too much sake. And Johnny B's like, sake? Really?
Mhm.
Really? That's what you're going
Always
with?
an excuse. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when Toranaga's questioning him, like, dude, you can't do this. That's unacceptable. And Buntaro's like, oh yeah, but she's so mean to me, and she was so nice to him, and Toranaga's like, that I don't want to hear it. Like, she does what I demand her to do. You're gonna stop, because even in like episode 1, whenever he would go to the council, Buntaro's like mad. Why does she get to go and I don't get to go?
Yes.
It just feels like the guy's simpy is not the right term. Because he's
No.
not like actively simping over her, but he's got an excuse for every bad thing. At least that's how I feel.
It almost feels like he's upset that he's not the more like dominant role in this relationship, where like he has to somewhere acknowledge and like know
Yes.
deep down that her station is higher than him due to her, family lineage or whatever, due to the skills she has as a translator. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, let's be real, like, comparing the 2 characters together, he's a bit of like, like a meathead, and
Yep.
she's obviously like very accomplished, but also, I mean, what I'm kind of a tangent here, but it just made me think of this. Is it possible, like, we know that Mariko's father sent her away to like her marriage with Bontaro to like get her out of Dodge, like put her far away from the fighting.
Yes.
But also, is it possible that he was also chosen because he is such an accomplished fighter, to the point where if the fighting actually ended up on their doorstep, she would have protection?
And this is the reveal this was my favorite part of the episode.
It was I know where you're going with this. I liked it too.
Toranaga, we're hopping around this week.
It's
Get over it.
yeah,
This
it's
show
good.
is like going from 0 to 200, and we're loving every second.
Yeah.
So Buntaro gives us all his excuses. Toranaga's like, you have 7 days of isolation. Stop it, or
Mhm.
else. And and I make light of that, but it was like a legitimate, like, no, you better knock this the fuck off, or
Right. Get a
be done.
divorce. Yeah.
Oh my god, that was so great. If it's so miserable, then why don't you just get a divorce? And he's like, but we've been together for too long for that now,
Mhm.
I guess. The thing that gets me is after that, Toranaga has his meeting with Johnny B, and Johnny B once again asks to leave. He's been given a fief of 600 cuckoos a year,
Failing
and
upwards.
he's moving up.
Yeah.
And he now has command of the cannon regiments. He's like, no, I want to go. I want to leave. And Toranaga's like, okay, fine, whatever. Sends him away. And then he says to Mariko, he's like, nope, you need to stay. I need to talk to you. And they have this extremely interesting exchange. And what stood out to me is, so he first naturally talks to her about, hey, what's with you and, the Anjin? And she's like, nothing, just words. We're good. And he's like, cool. They start talking, and it comes out because, he's asking, what is wrong between you and Buntaro? What's going on there? You guys need to figure your shit out. And she's like, I don't love him. I'm mad at my dad for marrying me to such a, for such a lower place. I don't know why my dad hates me so much. And then he died, and I never got any resolution on that. I never got a chance to even like prove myself or apologize for whatever it was that I did. And what got me about the scene is Toranaga looks at her and he's like, wait a minute. You know why that was, right? Like, he married you to Buntaro to get you out of the way and preserve your life and carry on the fight. And I was like, Oh, whoa.
That was my initial reaction too. I was like, okay, it's so like it's so charged. Like the moment is so charged.
Yeah.
I had that moment where I was like, all right, let's go. Like time to fight, like time to do this.
And,
And
and how
then
tenderly Tornaga's like, did no one ever talk to you about? Surely you figured this out.
right?
Like,
I actually circled back around too and was like, I hope Tornaga is telling the truth and not manipulating her. Like I hope that this is like
damn, I didn't
the
even think
realsies.
about that. Oh, how horrible would that be?
Right? But I mean like it
You
the
ruined it
thing
for
is
me.
though is like the
I
way
was
that
all
they showed
happy.
well, the way
Now
that
I'm
they showed
worried.
all those flashbacks and showing her like fighting, like her fighting skills,
Yeah,
like what he said makes a lot of sense. So it's like, yeah, of course, like this is what they're showing. So of course you're like, okay, that's a very believable statement. And
yeah.
it's also possible that it is a very believable statement because it is the truth, but he's also playing on that truth to get what he wants.
That well, and what have we noticed about Toranaga so far? Like, he is someone who very much understands that the best lies are based in truth.
Yeah.
So when he says to someone, "Oh yeah, you got to do this," and they go, "Oh damn, that actually makes sense. I'm gonna do that because it's the best thing in the world to do." But Toranaga's a master of like painting the picture in just such a way to
So
make you
masterful.
even know that you're being manipulated. You'd be like, I know he's just playing with me. Like, we saw this with Yabashige, where Yabashige was like, he's just messing with me. Like, I don't know what to do at this point in time. And everybody else is like, well, do something about it. He's like, I can't because
Yeah.
it's the kind of the best thing to do. Like, I can't
Yeah.
even argue with him.
Speaking of Yabushige, like the line, like, oh, time to write a new will, like
Yeah.
sent me. Like
Yeah.
I thank God, like this actor, man, like
He's
for,
so
he's
good.
boiling people. The way he was presented in the beginning, and now he's just like the funny guy. I'm like, I love it. I love him. I love the feather vest
Yeah.
thing, like all of it.
I loved when he did the his son was yelling when they're in this little thing. His son's yelling, "Oh, you got taking the command away from me!" Blah 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 blah. He's complaining and
Oh,
complaining, and
Oni.
Yamashita's just like, "Bro, like, have you looked at these reports? We're dead. Like, it's game over for us. We are
Right?
dead, and you're worried about your command."
Like, yeah.
Yeah, let's get a new will going.
And another thing too, talking about Toranaga's, like plans within plans and manipulations and just how great of a player is, like
Yeah,
this episode was just the way I don't want to say it was manipulation though. Like we had Hiramatsu, like, riding through the night to get there to, tell them the
yes.
news. And we have this meeting, right? Like when we learn about how Ishido has had some of the others killed from the council and the families and all this and that. So Hiramatsu comes through and they have this meeting, and Toranaga is like, Hiramatsu, what do you think we should do? And Hiramatsu's like, Crimson Sky.
Let's
And
fuck that
Toranaga's like,
roll
no,
out.
no, 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 no. Like, not now. But everyone's like, like Toranaga sama, Shogun, it's time. And he's like, that's not what I want. Not plausible deniability. Like it's so masterful though, because it was Hiramatsu's idea, not his.
And he
And
denied it publicly
exactly.
or renounced it.
And then like when we learn what happens, he's like, well, Crimson Sky it is. Like, so like
Yeah.
I mean, like I have to assume like I feel like he has thought about Shogun, like being Shogun. Like there's not a doubt in my mind, but the way that he has let others present things for him and then like distance himself from it, and then once, a circumstance happens, he's like, well, I guess this is the only option. And it's like, well played, sir. Well played.
It gives you a sense that it's like he's playing a very dangerous game. Now, he's very good at it, right? Like,
oh yeah,
we've seen him time and time and time again make successful gambles on things. But it's almost one of those like, well, okay, let's just look at what happened. What's the only event in the TV show to date that has diminished Toranaga's power? The earthquake.
yeah.
That's
An act of nature, like something completely out of his
So
grasp.
you've got this scenario in which they were like, come to Osaka Castle, be a prisoner in Osaka Castle. And everybody's like, aha, we've got him on the ropes. And he's just like 10 steps ahead of them the whole time, right?
Mhm.
Nothing any person has done has diminished Toranaga's power or influence in the show. The only thing that has successfully done that was that damn earthquake.
An act of God.
An
Like
act of God. And so you kind of get into this I don't know, it kind of gets into this really weird headspace where you're like, okay, is he playing a game at this time, or is there some kind of he's just
yeah, like it's like fate, right? Like that's
yeah
another big theme of this episode. We talk about Ochiba talking about fate, um, the relationship between Mariko and Johnny B, like Johnny B just washing up on shore and somehow just stumbling upwards, like fate, right? That was
yeah
what Rodrigo had said, shokume, like.
yeah
But Toranaga is just like he almost has like this almost like mystic godlike ability to where he's controlling everything
yeah
even when he's not even there, like the way that he's kept the council in check,
yeah.
like even though he's left. Like
Well, yeah. I mean, and what we talked about in great deal on one of the other episodes where he leaves his son with Yabashige, knowing that Ishido is going to show up, and knowing that representative is going to get killed. He just doesn't understand. He doesn't know exactly how it's going to happen, but he knows it's going to happen. And then the only thing he's upset about is that his son was the one who got manipulated. His son was the one who got
right.
played, and he's like, dude.
So I have to ask you another question now, because talking about Toranaga's son getting played,
Yeah.
who was it that instigated this? It wasn't Omi, it was Kiko. Like, wasn't
That's
Kiko the
right.
one whispering to Omi? So
That's
now
right.
the question is, does Toranaga, like, is Kiko an employee of Toranaga? Like, did he set this whole thing up himself?
Yes.
Or is it something else that I'm not catching? Like,
Do you know, I am loving this aspect of the show particularly because I feel like it's
same.
going to be one of those we can go back and rewatch and notice new things and catch new bits and pieces.
Right?
And I feel like I feel like so with that I feel like the rewatchability is just astounding. But I also feel like there are plots within plots within plots that we're not seeing until we get the context or the result later on in the show.
Yes.
And then we can look just like you just did. We know that early on that Toranaga keeps a council of women. He speaks with them, works with them, great. So it fits. It totally fits.
Right.
So there's a lot to kind of go, and who knows, maybe as we progress, we're going to find out that, you know, Kiko is in touch with Toranaga. Who
Or maybe
was
it'll be somebody totally else and it'll be like a big plot twist. Like,
well, and isn't Kiko the one that Johnny B went and saw?
yeah.
Lady Kiko.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like the best courtesan in all the land is whispering little to Omi to start some shit.
Right.
And then it's like chilling with the Anjin and pouring him some tea and loving on him, love him good, make him not tense so that they can pillow. I'm going to call it pillowing from now on because that just cracks me up. I love it so much. What are you doing later? Well, I thought I'd pillow.
Pillow.
Ah, yes. Enjoy your pillowing.
The other option, I think, too, is I do think Kiko has manipulated Omi, and Toranaga fits, you know, that fits for him. But also, is it possible that Kiko goaded, you know, Toranaga's forces into acting first so that Ishido or maybe Ochiba has a reason to declare war?
I love
So,
these
like,
conversations.
it could have been, it could be anyone. Like,
yeah.
because then you can say, like, plausible deniability, they struck first.
Exactly. And I love this so much because, again, it's the way political intrigue should be written, right?
Yeah.
Because you can see, well, even when they're in the tea house. So once again, you know, the Johnny B was sentenced to one night in a tea house.
One night of pillowing, please.
One night of pillowing. You're now sentenced to pillowing. Go. Pillow with the best courtesan in the land.
Yes.
What crime is that? Like, they show up, and I love that Mariko is like, okay, look, bro, you need to tighten it up and you need to behave because we are being watched. And he was like, didn't you just say that we would be like private, like everything would be private? And she was like, yeah, the more they promise that, the less it means that. Like,
right.
And it's funny too, because at every interaction they're like, oh yes, we will be very private here. And you're like, will you?
Right.
And you know that's going to come back somehow. Somehow that's going to play. Mariko specifically is like, don't run your mouth. Like, don't be a stupid dude and run your mouth. Like, I'm going to need you, please, to not.
And that raises the question too, did Toranaga send Mariko to, you know, eyes and ears, make sure that like things aren't being said? Or did he send her in to make her, you know, like put her and Johnny B back on good terms? Like maybe they can work things out themselves, and then Mariko will be a little bit more amicable to, you know, the things that I need from her.
Like, I got the impression with that because when he did say, okay, Johnny B, you go to the courtesan for pillowing, for a good pillow. And then he said, Mariko, you go with him. Like, I want you there the whole time. Go with him. And she's like, okay. Like, she just has this like blank mask. She's like, cool, I can do that. And it's like, you know, she's feeling some kind of way about that. While they're in the tea house and Lady Kiko was getting quite graphic about, you know, the expectation of things to come. Mariko was she was kind of struggling there for a minute. She was not doing great. And I know that, you know, the 8-fold fence and the 3 hearts and everything like that, that was a tough one for her. She was not in a good spot.
the way they switched up dialogue to where from her translation and being like she says, and then she switches to I. Like
Was that not? That was spicy. Like
it
that was spicy as hell.
it was. And I know, like, okay, going back, are you now somewhat enjoying the Mariko Johnny B thing more than
Yes.
okay.
And it's like I said, it was in that moment, it was a little out of left field for me, but we talked about it and I was like, okay, I can see that. And when I apply that to that, I can see them. And of course, and this is going to sound a little counterintuitive, but the best way to sort of define your feelings for someone that I have found is how you feel in a moment of strife or in a moment of loss. Do you miss their presence? If you actively feel not good when they're not around, like that's pretty good. That's a pretty good indicator that you're pretty much digging on them. If they have the ability to anger you, and I don't mean like the gaslighting and the guilt and everything like that, let's just
Right.
miss all that for the current conversation's sake. You're in a healthy relationship with someone and they drive you up the wall. They anger you. They hurt you. That's a good indicator that there is love there, because if you do something and someone never cares about it,
right,
they don't care about you. Like that's the dynamic. That's this weird situation.
And that's what we see from Mariko, like what she gives Buntaro, which is nothing.
And exactly. And Johnny B even says straight up, he's like, well, why don't you like at least get mad at him? And she's like, no, he doesn't deserve anything. I don't want to give him anything. And the fact that Johnny B is under her skin like this, I would even probably suspect she's a little like nervous about it, right? Like she also is not feeling too great about this.
The way she like readjusts like her like shirt at one point, I was like,
right though,
sir,
like
ma'am.
It was a real spicy scene. Like it was, but it was so well done. It was like you're almost sitting there being like, this should give the show a rating. Like this should give the show the like.
It was giving like Jane Austen. This is like, okay. So like I've tried to like get my feelings out on like what was it about the scene? Why was it so different? What exactly was done there that was just like so tense, so good, but not like over the top? And like what I kept coming back to was like, is it just that like the scene was like shot with the female gaze? Like it wasn't like, like some shows, like for example, like take something like Game of Thrones, like something where there's like explicit nudity and like like it's so different, because in this show we're focusing on, we have that really long shot where it's literally the camera, you can see below the nose to like here, and it's just like the neck and the lips and nothing else.
This area in Japan is a very sensual area, like
and then
they
like
cover that up. That's very intimate.
And then on top of that, like the lingering of the hand, like there didn't need to be words. There didn't need to be like this like undying, like, like, you know what I mean? Like there didn't have to be like kissing, anything like that. It was just like that simple, like, oof, like, well done. But it, for some reason, to me, that feels like something, like a scene shot for the women, for like women to watch in a way. Like, and I'm not saying that I don't think like men wouldn't enjoy it, but I feel like that feels right. But it just feels different in that way that it caters, maybe.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. This is a very
Or
emotionally sensual scene, right?
right. Or it's just
Where
catering to a time, like, I don't
yeah,
know, like, or to a culture, and I'm interpreting it as, gendered.
well, I mean, it kind of is though. You kind of have to look at it. It kind of has to be a gendered sort of scenario. Um,
Well, it's the women of the Willow, like, it I guess that they did it themselves, right?
yeah.
Like
Well, and it's exactly like you said it, right? Toranaga made her go along for a reason.
I just thought of
And
something else. I just thought of something else.
oh, hit it
So
while
the
it's fresh.
conversation, yeah, the conversation between Mariko and Toranaga about Toranaga being like, "Why does Lady Ochiba hate me? Like, what is her deal? What is she playing at?" And she gives this long speech, and she's saying like, men go to war for like power, whatever, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Women, like, they don't go to war; they are simply at war. And it was like, yeah, and it's like, okay, so like maybe this whole episode was catering to like a specific viewpoint.
Yeah. Well, and that was my take of it as well. Is it was very much one of those, we've shown the male bravado, the male, I've got my big sword and my cannon and I've got my
Mhm.
explosions. Yeah, and I don't mean to strip it
The
down to,
canon, how
yeah.
phallic. I mean, it is, right? Like, it is.
It is textbook definition of a phallic object.
It is.
Um, what I like about this is that, once again, we've talked about how complete the storytelling is on this. There are no side characters, right?
Yeah,
There
that's
are
true.
there are there are, this is a story of main characters and how they, which I think is resonating specifically with you and I really, really well, because the Wheel of Time is similar. Like,
Yeah.
even characters that don't have a lot of page time, they still have main contributions to the story,
Mhm.
which would change the outcome of the story had they not been there. And
Right.
I feel like this is a type of storytelling that we're getting in Shogun. And they have to give us everyone. They have to give us perspective of everyone. They have to give us POV from everyone in order to give us a more full experience as the consumer, as the watcher of the show. And so
Right.
in this particular case, we get to see another depth of Mariko. We get to see another depth of Lady Ochiba, and we get to see another layer in Lady Kiko, even, right? Because
Yes.
Lady Kiko, like, she's not dumb. They
No,
walk in, they
no.
sit down, she's doing the tea, she's doing all the stuff. She could have sat in front of Johnny B and been like, okay, now translate for me. I'm going to take off all my clothes. Imagine me.
She
She
like
didn't.
triangulated.
She
Like
went around. She made sure that Mariko was between her and Johnny B, so that when Johnny B looked over, he saw some Mariko. And Mariko, what did she do? She was like, imagine me the way it is. Like, and I have to believe that for all of the spying and the eyes and ears and the things, I have to believe that this was Kiko sort of being like, hey, like,
mhm.
woman to woman, let me do you a solid. Like, I know I'm about to take him back, but I want his last thought, his last imagination. Basically, what she was doing is she was
Right.
like, I know I have to do this, but I'm going to make sure he's thinking about you when we do this,
Also, okay,
which is kind of
just
devious.
it is. It is kind of, but it's also like, I don't know, like I love it.
No,
But
I love it.
but
Yeah, it's
but
great.
but also like you know what would like make my brain explode is if later on in the series we get some type of confirmation from Kiko or someone like who somehow like says like, well, like nothing happened. like she took him back and like it wasn't like what
Hmm.
Mariko thought happened. And like
Hmm.
that would be an interesting plot twist as well. But on the other hand, like the way that they were like the way that they were like, come back anytime.
Come back anytime,
Marvelous.
buddy.
I have to wonder. I have to wonder.
Well, and what have we learned about this, right? We've learned in this world so far that everyone has their own agenda. And they're
Right.
all just playing that power move to see who's going to show their hidden heart.
Right, because if nothing transpired between the two, that would be some pretty important intel if you
Mhm.
need to like use something against Mariko.
Exactly.
So,
So, and then, like I said, I feel like when Kiko did her little power move and sat
mhm.
on the other side of Mariko, I do want to say that was her kind of being like, "Hey, girl, I got you. Like, go ahead." Like,
I like that interpretation.
it's kind of a sweet. It's a subtle grace, right? It's a
Yeah.
sweet little like. I picked up on it. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm gonna do this just so if it is, you guys can have a think. But then there's also maybe there's benefit to whoever Kiko's benefactor is in division in the Toranaga house. So
Right.
maybe she picked up on it, wasn't sure if it was there or not, and then pretended to be all nice about it
Mhm.
just to strengthen that magnetism between Johnny B and Mariko.
Yes. Plots within plots within plots.
Plots within plots.
Crimson Sky.
And next is Crimson Sky.
Well, I mean, I love how this episode is just, okay, like we said, like the Willow, like you're just kind of flowing through it. So many interesting things happening, and then like the period, the exclamation point at the end of the sentence is like,
Yeah.
we're going to war, and it's like,
Yes.
hey.
And well, and this is a good time to talk about what's happening in Osaka as well.
Yes,
Because Lady Ochiba is also maneuvering. She's not stagnant by any means. She's in there. She comes in and she's like, "All right, Ishido, we need to find a fifth regent so you can do all your stupid stuff."
she's like, how about the theater guy?
Oh my god! Which I was really glad. I always love period pieces when they share some bit of like the culture of that society from back then. And getting
Yeah.
to watch Japanese theater, I thought was really fun. Like I loved the voice intonation, and I loved the motions and the things like that. And I loved that it was such a good, like you felt like you were a Japanese person in the 1500s attending a Japanese theater.
Yeah.
And of course, it was the story of Lord Taiko and Lady Ochiba, and so Lady Ochiba had her sort of
Special
leverage.
place and that, yeah.
And she comes in and she says, "Hey, we'd like you to be one of the regents." Ishido is like, "Yeah, let's be a regent. You're awesome. Like you did such a good job playing Lord Taiko. You should just come be a lord." Like,
you know what? Like these poor idiots have no idea. Like she is going to chew them up and spit them out one by one.
So true.
I adore this character. Like she is just, I mean, villainous as can be, but also like I love her.
Yes.
Like
No, I'm right there with you.
what an amazing opponent to Toranaga. Is there anyone that has an ounce of what like he can do other than her? I don't think so.
Well, and it's funny too, because one of the things that I'm gonna like bring it into the Hobbit, right? I'm going to the Hobbit. We're taking this way into left field here. But there's a scene in the Hobbit when they find the orc horde and Bilbo finds a dagger, which is of course becomes famously Sting, and everybody's like, oh hey, look, you even found a sword. And he's like, yeah, it's just a dagger, but it's a sword to me. Not that I know how to use the darn thing anyway. We don't use swords. And you get this sort of description that hobbits are small and not very strong, so they don't really fight, but they are very fast and very clever, and they're very good at staying out of sight. And because they use what they have to their strength, right? They don't lament on what they do not have. They take what they do have and they use it to their strengths. And I feel like Lady Ochiba in this instance is very much doing that, because Ishido very much is a type of person who is going to find a reason to get rid of her as soon as the heir is old enough.
Right.
If he even allows the heir to become of age.
Right.
And she knows this. Like, I get the feeling she very much understands this. She's not worried at all, though, because she's like, yeah, go ahead. Keep underestimating me. Keep doing what I want you to do out of, whatever your pity or whatever it is you're doing it for. Just know that when you think you're going to be able to come back around and throw me away, you won't. It will be too late for you. But for now, we're going to work together because we have to undo the division that Toranaga has left us with. But it's very much a frenemies vibe, right?
Yeah. And I get the impression that Ishido, like, he somehow really believes that he's somewhat in control. Like, despite everything just kind of like the rug being pulled out from underneath him over and over. But this last act of desperation where he kills, I forget who the regent it was, and they escape in the night. But I mean, things don't look good for him, because as much as he wants to play that off, like, oh, it was bandits. How many? I love how
Really,
the bandits. It's always a bandit in the show. Like, oh, like brigands, bandits.
Curse you, bandits.
Yeah, but I love how Ochiba comes in, and now we have this mirror character to Toranaga, and it's very interesting because Toranaga has this side of him, but he also seems like a feared warrior. Ochiba is not. She's going into war with the talents that she has honed because of not being able to war like a man. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So now, she's built herself up to this point where she is a fearsome opponent and a worthy opponent to Toranaga. And that's just ooh, I love it. I love it.
It's so good. And we see, like I said, we see her kind of overcoming what Toranaga did to them when they try to vote her pick for the regent in. And the two Christian regents go. Ishido goes. I think it's Ito is the actor guy who comes in. He's like, oh, I'm very honored. Thank you. Yes, I vote yes for myself. And the fifth guy, and I can't remember his name, he stands up. He's like, no, I've done some shady shit in my day. I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. I am out. And if you ask me to do this, I will resign. And you guys will be right back to where you were. And then it was like, oh, is that how you feel? All right, cool. We'll kill you too then, I guess.
Yeah. You get the idea that Ishido, thinking back, knows he should have never had the option of somehow letting Toranaga escape, because as soon as that person is dead, then you can just find another seat. But death isn't the same as quitting. So the law seems so very tricky.
Well, and I love the end of this episode when he kills that regent, because it shows very much that Ishido actually doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about the edict of the Taiko. what he cares about is being in power. And he uses the edict to legitimize himself, right?
Yeah.
He uses that to be like, hey, I'm doing this because I can. Because it says so right here in this book that I can do it. But he doesn't care. But so long as he adheres to the rules, the other ones are like, well, yeah, Ishido's a good guy. He follows the rules. What?
And now
then he's killed how many people now? Like, this is not okay. Like, we need you guys to start acknowledging this. And I think that's kind of what the ending of this episode symbolized, which is, oh yeah, no, you're just power hungry. Like, that's just all you want. You don't actually care about the rules. You just care about securing your power.
A power hungry diplomat, like, or bureaucrat
who will do anything to keep his power.
And I okay, like, since we are kind of at the end here, I love how he's been built up as like this opponent the whole time, right? Like, he's sending guys after this person, killing these people over here.
Yes.
Now we're halfway through the season, and a little over halfway through. And what do we have now? Like, it turns out Ishido's not even that guy. And now we're looking at it as like, okay, is that, I guess Ochiba is that guy.
Yeah, you do. It does kind of feel like a man behind the curtain kind of a thing, right? Only in this case, it's the lady behind the curtain.
Yeah.
So overall, like, episode 6, like, how you loving it? And the series as a whole, is it getting better? Is it staying about where you expected? Are you getting a little bit bored thinking you need something to happen? Like, what's your overall impressions?
Okay. My like hot take right after watching this episode was a lot of setup.
Yes.
But it was very entertaining setup. So I loved all of it. It was a really great episode. I think, like, even though it does feel like setup, that doesn't, like, I'm not saying that it's even bad in that way. Like, they've managed to make like a really, really interesting episode where a lot of times some series, it's like, okay, we got to move this person here, and we got to, we finally got to get over this hill to get to that one point. And that episode did that, but it also like had so many layers between all of the characters, how all of their fates are just like super entwined. And like, I don't know, like, I'm really excited to get to the planning stage, figuring out like what does Crimson Sky entail.
Yes. I too am excited about that. I can't wait. That's going to be so good. The series as a whole, for me, it just keeps getting better and better. They've done a really great job of giving us different flavors of story and still keeping it engaging. We've seen the bloody capture, we've seen the bloody execution, we've seen the explosions, we've seen the political maneuverings, we're seeing the female sort of perspective and role in this world. We're starting to get a sense that, oh yeah, nobody can really be trusted, and if you want to survive, you need to pick a side quickly. And it's I'm really loving it. And we're at episode 6 now. It's going to be a 10 episode series. We got 4 episodes left. My prediction is episode 7 is going to be some skirmishing, some maneuvering, some something.
Maybe meeting Toranaga's brother, perhaps. That's exciting.
I think episode 8 is going to be the beginning of Crimson Sky. And I think the series will stop with the capture of Osaka Castle, with the success or failure of Toranaga-sama.
We shall wait and see.
Tune in next time. Yes. Same bat time, same bat channel That's a reference a lot of you kids probably don't get. That's okay. You should get it. If you want to know what that means, leave a comment below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for geeking out with us today. Amber, go ahead and just tell them once again where you're from, where they can find you, and what you do.
Road to Tarvalin. That's the channel name. Obviously, Josh has already told you that I have the odd episodes. He has the evens.
Yes.
And yeah, like I've been covering Three Body Problem as of late, some good sci-fi that is just airing on Netflix. Whole season's out. That has been a blast. And also, Wheel of Time stuff. Lots of fantasy and sci-fi. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Thanks, Amber, for being here. Thank you for this collab. I'm having so much fun with it.
Me too.
Thank you guys for watching at home. If you're tuning in right now, like I said, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment with your episodes of episode 6. Go over, follow the link in the description below if you haven't already been over there. Go over to Amber's channel, subscribe and like there. And in both places, if you ring the bell, you don't miss anything. Whenever we do these episodes, you get a notification that tells you some new awesomeness is coming your way. So once again, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for geeking out with us. And wherever you are, I hope you leave here just a little bit more geeky than you were when you first started. Stay geeky, my friends.